So is Ben Hopkins in the room? I'll call him to the lectern to speak on the matters that... No. Ben, we're in public forum, and if you wish to speak, you come to the... we're not in a council meeting. So, Ben, you've got 3 minutes? 3 minutes to speak, and you've and just mention the matter that you wish to speak to in terms of the...
I've just got this much, so hopefully I get a chance to finish. My name is Ben Hopkins, and I'm a resident of Tamworth. I'm speaking to item 10.5, proposal sale of council-owned land 87 to 93 Brisbane Street, Tamworth, commonly known as the Mechanics Institute building. My basic argument is that the councillors should not consider the agenda report as written because it does not include basic elements which must be included in a report from the council. Firstly, there's no concrete planning proposal in the agenda report. The agenda report to item 10.5 does not contain, summarise or mention a written planning proposal for the subject site. As councillors well know, a planning proposal would contain the objectives, explanations and justifications for the proposed use of land and buildings on the Mechanic Institute site. An agenda report would additionally assess policy implications, financial implications, legal implications and a delivery program. The council, in considering a planning proposal, would be bound to consider and assess the proposal and report according to provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act and the Local Government Act and regulations. This agenda report does not say if any person or business has come to the council with a proposal for the site. The only consideration is negative, money, and there is no apparent proposal. Development or sales of public land cannot be based on accounting decisions made on a spreadsheet. There has to be a planning and legal basis. Secondly, there is no motion or recommended motion in the agenda report. An agenda report should include the text of a motion or resolution, which is usually in blue text at the top of the report. Most motions are a list of steps to be taken by the council for which the councillors give authorisation, legal authorisation. A typical motion for disposal of public land might include what steps the General Manager is authorised to take, what documents and reports need to be drawn up, what transfers and conveyances need to be made, what public notification is required, what planning controls or council policies might be affected, and what specifically is to be done with the funds raised, whether they be saved, reinvested or held in trust. Councillors may, in the course of voting or discussion, agree, disagree with or amend some parts of the recommended motion. But because there's no motion in this agenda report for item 10.5, there is nothing for the councillors to amend, vote for, or importantly, to oversee to make sure the resolution is properly implemented, legally implemented. Thirdly, there is no strategic plan considered in the agenda report. Council reports and proposals should be grounded and justified by reference to the Community Strategic Plan, Blueprint 100, the New England Northwest Regional Plan, the Tamworth Regional Local Environmental Plan, the Development Control Plan or site-specific precinct plans or any other guidelines, ministerial directions or community engagement. This agenda report merely states that, quote, the property has not been identified as providing any strategic purpose. This is not an adequate assessment of the strategic documents, and secondly, this statement is not true. Objective 5 of the New England Northwest Regional Plan is, quote, to enhance the diversity and strength of CBDs and town centres. The plan states, quote, the region's places offer distinctive features such as historic building and tree-lined streets. The Mechanics Institute building is listed in item 312 in Schedule 5 of the Local Environmental Plan. Section 7.5 of Blueprint 100 contains 4 relevant actions for protecting the region's heritage assets. None of these strategic goals are mentioned in the agenda report. While, of course, a sale of public land could enhance heritage values and improve the CBD, this is not considered in the agenda report. It's not mentioned. So therefore, there are basic elements not included in this report, and thus the councillors should not consent or authorise to any actions on this limited basis. Just to conclude here, this is the final section. By contrast, there is in this report a mention of a so-called commercial property and land activation plan. To be clear, no commercial property and land activation plan has been put to or adopted by the council. There is no such plan on the website. The issue of public land arose tangentially in the council's discussion of the auditing of the budget documents last December. Mayor Webb then addressed the issue to the media. However, there is no formal plan to follow. Impermissibly, the Council has engaged external consultants without a resolution to prepare lists of public land for reclassification as operational and for sale. The Tamworth Regional Council does not have adequate documentation of its public land. The external consultants are therefore to cut and paste a document which will fail legislative standards.
I can't take it much further, so you'll have to pull up there. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Thank
this
you.
issue of a land activation plan, which doesn't exist in the agenda report, should legally concern the councillors when they vote on this motion.
Thank you. We have another speaker tonight registered for public forum, Stephen Maher. I'm not quite sure whether Stephen Maher's in the building. No appearance? No appearance? Councillors, there being no appearance, and we've been outside, had a look on the veranda. We've had our first speaker. I'll bring community consultation or public forum to an end, and thank you for your attendance, and thank the speaker that did come for his attendance. Thank you very much, and those in the audience. So we'll close public forum, and we'll have a break now until the council meeting. We have one leave of absence or one apology, and that is from Councillor Mears, away on work, I think, or on business. So we'll move from there on to item 2, minutes from the previous meeting. Could I have someone?
You need a mover and a seconder for that apology, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry.
You need a mover and a
sorry,
seconder
yeah.
for that.
Can I have a mover and a seconder for that apology? Councillor Brooke, Councillor Sutherland, all those in favour? We'll now move on to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting submitted for approval. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Budd, seconded Councillor Brooke. Any questions, any comments?
Question, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to
What will end up being item, I think 10.5, I should say, and end up being 11.5. Last year, at the last meeting of 2025, we resolved to defer it to discuss strategic use and stuff like that. And I don't believe that's ever happened. So why hasn't that happened? And now it's come back into business paper for this meeting. And I think there'll be a few that might be a bit bemused by that, that we haven't, I guess, discussed the Mechanics Institute building from the decision that we made in 2025.
Mr General Manager, would you like to make comment to that question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Rodder, for anybody that's been following the changes to the Code of Meeting Practice, you'd be aware that we're not allowed to hold workshops anymore to talk about items that are in the business paper. The staff basically agreed that Council deferred it. That gave the councillors a chance to go away and do their own research, consultation with the community, form their own opinions about whether it should or shouldn't be sold. We've brought it back for Council to make a decision, but we're not allowed to do workshops like that anymore.
Councillor Rodder, that answer your question? Any further questions in relation to the minutes? I'll put those minutes as being a true and correct record. All those in favour say aye, raising your hand. Those against, carried unanimously. Councillors, we'll now move on to item point 3, disclosure of interest. Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 10.3, which will be 11.3, I'd like to declare a significant non-pecuniary interest regarding the proposed lease variation for the Visitor Information Centre, as I am a family friend of the proponent, and I will leave the building, the meeting.
Thank you. Any further disclosure of interest? Councillor Brooke.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. For item 8.4, the proposed lease of an area within the Community Event Centre, the proposed licensee is a client of my work, and if they were to take up a vacancy in that building, it would require spend on IT infrastructure, resulting in business for my work. So I'd consider that a pecuniary interest, and I'll opt to leave the room during debate.
Thank you. Any further items? I'm going to report one. I have an interest in 10.1, 11.1 in relation to the proposed sale of land to Boyada. I have a business interest with them in terms of leasing a property, so I'll be leaving the room for that. No further disclosure of interest. We'll move to item 5, Merrill Minute. There is no Merrill Minute. We'll now move to 4, no Merrill Minute. We'll move to item 5, notice of motion. We have a notice of motion from Councillor Ron Brooke.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Instead of moving the notice of motion...
Do we have a seconder?
Well, I'd like to move a different motion to what's been
Okay.
I'd like to make this one slight variation. In point 2 of my motion, where the last word that says endorsement, after consultation with Councillor North, I'd like to move the motion, but with that word changed to consideration.
Now, seconder for that? Councillor North.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, the job of local government is to manage community-level services, infrastructure and planning to ensure a high quality of life for our residents. The beauty of being the level of government closest to the people we represent is that we are more adaptable to local needs as the needs arise. That gets to the spirit of what I'm asking us to consider here. And our region is known for being dry and hot during summer, and for a lot of residents, the public assets we run, like our pools and libraries, provide refuge for many in our community who don't have a pool in their backyard or well-insulated air-conditioned housing. If, like me, Mr. Mayor, you've been watching the news over our January break, you've seen reports of other councils in areas that have been hardest hit by the heat waves we've seen this summer, that have run across the country, make targeted use of public assets during extreme heat events. During forecasted heat waves and multiple days in a row above 40 degrees, and increasingly with temperatures approaching 50 degrees in over parts of the country, they give residents a place to stay cool during the hottest parts of the day until some relief is provided by cooling temperatures into the evening. Whether that be by removing the entry price for public pools, something we're already trialling, and something we all supported when Councillor Budden and Sutherland put that forward for targeted days last summer, and from my discussions with residents, that this has been very well utilised and appreciated this summer. Or it could be keeping libraries open as a free entry, cool public space for a few extra hours into the evening. There seems to be a thread here that councils that do this have a policy or at least a contingency plan for these actions ahead of time. So when a forecasted heat wave does land, there's already a procedure and a budget in place to allow for extra staff rostering or a slight loss in revenue to make temporary adjustments for the running of these community spaces for the public good during extreme heat. That's what I'm asking for us to consider with this motion, for council to have a look at what sort of plans we could put in place during extreme heat events to offer relief to the community. It does need to be said and considered that while extreme heat affects everyone, it's the most vulnerable within our community who have the hardest time managing the effects. I think it's a responsibility of ours as community representatives to think of who does this affect the most. Disproportionately, that's the young, the old, pregnant people, and people with chronic health conditions. Making use of our already operating community assets to offer relief, I think, is a pretty reasonable step. A resolution here, I think, will not only demonstrate that we value these assets, these areas of our operations, but give direction that we want to streamline scaling up operations in times of need. So I would encourage councils to support this motion, and I hope to read about identified initiatives we could consider taking in a future report.
Any speakers against? Councillor Sharpen.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd firstly like to note that there isn't really any financial implications listed on this motion. The statement made in the financial implications, it doesn't really give me any confidence that I could answer a resident on how much this is going to cost the council. The use of staff time is not free, and it's, in my opinion, this is a fairly poorly researched motion, and I certainly won't be voting in favour of it. Council is not the responsible agency in these situations. It comes from a multi-agency level, and investing in initiatives providing, the term investing initiatives on providing heat relief facilities for residents during heat events. What would that be like? Would it be like the beautiful parks and gardens we've already got, the covered footpaths, the bubblers that are all around town, and we're already providing them? Or how about the privately funded facilities such as shopping centres, restaurants, pubs, McDonald's? It's open 24 hours a day. I don't understand, the other thing in this is climate resilience. Is that giving people a false climate, a man-made climate, and then sending them home to a hot house? I'd suggest this would have a detrimental effect on someone's long-term health. I would actually also suggest this could have a legal implication, which isn't listed here, when these things have to shut at the times of the hot times in the day. We host Australia's biggest festival, and it's during the hottest time of the year, but that doesn't stop anyone from coming. We have 40 degree days and the streets are still full, the parks are still full. I think people just want to enjoy the great Australian summer. And to note that this summer was extreme, I'd strongly disagree with that. It was one of the mildest summers I think I've ever experienced. I'll also note the Tamworth region is very different to other councils nearby, even like Gunnedah and Moree. Our climate is very different and we don't see the extremes that they see. And as for sustainability, we often hear we're going to experience more frequent extreme weather events because of climate change. But the science says otherwise. If there was any truth to this, we'd see increasing deaths over climate events. However, since the Industrial Revolution, we've seen nothing but decrease. We're the land of extremes, and the climate activists are destroying our economy and our environment in the name of a myth. And for these reasons and others, I can't support the motion.
Further speakers for? Mark Sutherland. Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be speaking in support of Councillor Brooks' notice of motion because at heart I think that he's correct in saying that we have a responsibility of not only maximising the use of community assets but also protect our communities most vulnerable where we have or are in a position to do so. I acknowledge that safety is not, the primary concern of local government, that there's state jurisdictions that look after that. But in this case, we already have and offer a wide range of services right across the region that supports people in times of need, especially regarding heat. Councillor Sharpen mentioned the bubblers, and the facilities we have in that space. That our public gallery and our public libraries are sometimes, and I heard this really cool term, as the community's lounge room. It's a space where the community get to go, feel safe and protected, but also in times of need, being able to look at how we can maximise the resources we already own to provide that little bit of relief. In our community strategic plan, I just want to note that we talk around the strategic value or policy alignment, that we've committed to support our region's prevention, preparedness and response and recovery to measures that help people in and resilience to disasters. Now, I'm not saying that heat waves are a disaster because it is a part of our climate and we know it's coming around every time of the year and some seasons are worse than others. But can we be prepared and ready for moments of extreme heat? And if we can, as a council, I'm in full support of providing staff the direction to say, can we look at using the facilities and resources we have to cater for people in those times of need? Personally, I'm looking forward to a report coming of what that could look like. I would like to see it eventually turn into a toolkit or something that we could promote to say, yes, there are other venues outside of council's jurisdiction. There are pubs and restaurants and services, but as a father and with a young family, in a heat wave, I wouldn't want to be rushing the family to sit down at the pub to enjoy the aircon. If there's a safe space we can go, I'd prefer to go to that space. We have the assets. I think it's only worthwhile that we use a little bit of staff effort to be able to pull that together. So I'm going to be in support of that notice of motion.
Further speakers against? Councillor Budd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Please indulge me whilst I read my response. Normally I wouldn't read, but today there's some content in here that I think is important that we need to absorb. I don't really want to miss too much. So I really do commend Councillor Brooke for raising this matter, and I think it is part of Council's bailiwick to be involved and be conscious of the safety of our community and provide as much amenity as we can to look after people, particularly in days and periods of extreme heat. And to use the term heat wave, which is generally how it's covered, evidence already exists and shows that we do this now as a community. It exists. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We just need to be conscious of what it's about. And this is probably not the fault of anyone, but to be aware of the local emergency management arrangements in our area is so important when talking about heat waves. So heat waves are not a new thing. They've been around part of Australia forever. And indeed our Indigenous communities have lived that experience for tens of thousands of years. Our last summer, we're still in the middle of it. It really wasn't as hot as it could have been. We've had some hot days, but we've had significantly hotter summers than we've had this year. Nonetheless, it's important that we consider in the back of our minds how the community find relief. Heatwave responses in our communities is clearly articulated in the SERM Act, the State Emergency and Rescue Management Act, and it has been for many decades. Having performed the role of the Local Emergency Operations Control, the LEOCON, for 20 years, I've been involved in numerous reviews of heatwave responses and a whole place of responses from community in relation to all these things that can affect us. It also includes extremely cold weather. New South Wales Health is the lead response agency within the CERMAC. What that means is they have carriage and responsibility of planning and response with regard to heat waves. They work closely with local emergency management committees in achieving that response. That's the response I spoke a little moment ago about being involved in those reviews. They're reviewed biannually or every 4 years as a rule. Significant plans and responses already exist. Importantly, they are plans and responses that are accountable by way of legislation and community. Legislation supports it and community demands it. The Local Emergency Management Committee is in fact chaired by a Local Emergency Management Officer who just so happens to be a senior manager within Tamworth Regional Council staff. And we are fortunate to have an individual who, in my opinion, is an outstanding operator in this space and extremely well versed. So Tamworth Regional Council is at the forefront already on how we respond to these heat wave and heat relief conditions. We're very heavily invested in supporting responses to heat waves and actively participate. I still attend the LEMC meetings, which I'm doing tomorrow, in support of not just our region, but all of our residents, our community, and all of our regional towns and our cities and villages. It's all represented within this local government area. It's worth noting that Tamworth Regional Council, in conjunction with New South Wales Health, have an initiative being considered at this time whereby they are using all available data, local services, NGOs, in developing a way to properly identify our vulnerable residents and make them a priority in heat wave and other crises. If the lead response agency, New South Wales Health, and other response agencies requested the resources of council in response to a heat wave through the CERMAC, I guarantee Tamworth Regional Council will respond. We will, without question, we will cooperate and we'll open our resources, offering every possible resource and option that we have at our availability. There's no question about that. But before that button is pushed, consideration must be given to what is already available in our communities seeking shelter and relief in heat wave conditions. Keeping in mind, these conditions and the heat wave, the real intense stuff, is pretty much in the afternoons into the early evening. That's when the maximum heat is there. Tamworth alone has 15 pubs, has 11 clubs, has 9 shopping centres, has numerous churches and places of faith. It has gymnasiums. The list goes on and on and on. Most are open late in the evenings, but definitely during the peak heat conditions, as I said. They are air conditioned. They can provide sustenance and comfort. Some have transport options attached as well. In our regional towns, there are similar resources to access. Not all have council resources and buildings to actually use in time of crisis, but they're available. Attunga and Woolman being the exception to our public places that are not air conditioned. Whilst they may have halls, they're not air conditioned. In terms of water points and bubblers, the region is extremely well serviced by Tamworth Regional Council, providing a plethora of locations where potable drinking water, bottle refill stations and dog bowls can be accessed, free of charge. Tamworth has in fact 33 locations provided. Multiple locations exist in Nundle, Nundle, Katingal, Manila and Barraba. They're all serviced. That doesn't even take into account the amount of potable taps within our parks and open spaces that cater for this opportunity to access water. I have a full list of that to be tabled if required. I cannot in good conscience support the further stretching of ratepayers' funds and forcing staff to conduct research on an issue which is extremely well considered, planned for, is supported by infrastructure. A little research clearly shows we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The plans already exist. Tamworth Regional Council are already well tasked and occupied doing the good work that they do without requiring further burden in terms of our staff. There's no need for any further reports to be submitted or to be available because they're available through the Local Emergency Management Committee and all those reporting conditions which are audited and overseen by state level in a couple of different places, regionally and state. Again, in no way am I trying to suggest that it's not important to consider the welfare of our community. I think it's valid and that's great, that's to be commended. But I can't support it based on the fact that it already exists and we're just creating another job that we don't need to be involved in. At that level, certainly our resources would be available if anyone asks. I can't support the motion. Thank you.
Further speakers, Paul?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd like to speak for the motion and on the principle that this is an investigation only. There are no decisions being made tonight on resource allocation of hard resources such as pools, halls or anything else that might be of a nature that could be used in such an event. It's an investigation. And as we know, investigations sometimes uncover new ideas and fresh ideas and new ways of doing things. State agencies don't have all the answers to all the challenges we face when we have such heat waves and potentially other what we would deem as natural disasters. And as we know, heat waves probably aren't considered a natural disaster, but they're probably considered a disaster for a lot of our residents who don't have the gift of air conditioning or access to a pool and those types of facilities. And there are a lot of residents who don't have access to that. If we can come up with a best case scenario, a toolkit, if you like, as Councillor Sutherland mentioned, with consultation with some of these agencies who have already done a lot of work. So it's not reinventing the wheel, it could be enhancing the wheel, putting the rubber on the timber wheel to make the wheel roll faster and more evenly. So I support the motion. I think there's an opportunity potentially for a staff member to really lick their lips with this and in consultation with the other agencies and some discussions and some good robust discussions, some really good ideas might come from this.
Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Rodder?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will also support the motion. I can recall extreme summers and while this one was probably, like Councillor Sharman said, mild, it was probably mild. There was certainly pockets of over 40, but I can distinctly remember 2018, 2019, especially during one of our worst droughts. It was extreme, and I think it was 2019 from October 2018 through to February 2019 was consistently 40 degrees for the whole lot as we were running out of water. And so, we will get one of those droughts again. That was potentially the record of the drought of record, and we will get a drought that will be more serious than that one. And as Councillor Impey said, it's not requesting any expending of funds at the moment, and I don't think that Director Logan's area of he's got enough staff in that area that probably could help with some of those things that I've mentioned here, along with some of the other directorates. So I think that it's a well-meaning motion or recommendation, and it's only asking for investigations about how ways we can help those people that Councillor Ryan mentioned in his, Councillor Brook mentioned in his preamble that it would help during times of extreme weather events.
Further comments? Councillor North?
Through you, Mr Mayor, for the General Manager, can we get a really approximate cost of what it's going to take to develop this report? Time? I know it's a bit hard, and the director or the area of council that will be conducting it.
Thank you, Councillor North. Through you, Mr Mayor. It would be more the time for me. It was actually one of the questions I was going to ask Councillor Brook afterwards if this motion is put up, is the expectation around when this report will be brought back. Like we have an environmental unit, we have venue managers, we have Murray Russell who heads up the local emergency management committee. We have access to information, but there's a hell of a lot of work on council's plate right at this point in time. So this would have to take the place of something else that those staff would be working on. But we would certainly have the skills and expertise internally to develop the report. It'd be what council's expectations are around timing. I would just flag with councils, it would take some input from some external agencies, because I think a number of councillors have mentioned that, and this is one of our biggest concerns, is that this is really about the vulnerable people in our community, the older people and people who might have chronic illnesses and so on. And we don't have support. We don't have staff with the skills to support them in our facilities. So it would take a collaboration with Public Health or New South Wales Health, certainly to say that if we were going to put something like this in place, they would also have to take ownership and provide whatever resources might be required to ensure we don't have those types of emergencies in those facilities and put a bigger stress, a bigger burden on the staff that aren't skilled in those areas.
Thank you. I think I'll just say that I'm in support of the motion generally. And I like, you know, I can see arguments on both sides. My concerns are the time for staff to do this, and we're already, we're struggling for the resources to do what we currently do, let alone the financial costs of employing someone to do it if that's part of it as well. Furthermore, I have concerns about the costs of implementing recommendations, whether it's extended pool hours. Well, that's a costly exercise, whether it's extensions to library or facilities or what have you, even the running cost of those facilities for extended hours. So that's a fair concern for me. It may uncover what I like to think. We're constantly striving for the improvements we can offer our residents. The way I like to put it in my business is the 1%ers. We're always looking for the 1%ers, whether in each area of our council. And to me, this is a 1%er that where we can offer help to the community, the fringes of the community that may need it. I'm not, as Councillor Impey said, we're not looking to necessarily implement anything. We're looking for a report only, and I realise that's a partial drain on some resources. But I do think deep down that we should be looking at these things, and we may look for alternatives for some grant funding for maybe, I don't know whether it's further street plantings of trees or bubblers or coverings of areas. I don't know what's available, but sometimes going through these reviews brings up ideas, and we should always be looking for ideas. So I'm in support of this recommendation because I think it helps the fringe parts of our community that struggle in times where I think where our future is I believe we have a warming climate, and my view is we have the science is saying that, and we need to look back the science with that. So I'll be voting to support this motion.
Council, has everyone spoken? I'm just going to make a few comments. This particular summer just gone past, is, when you have a look back on the records, is probably one of the mildest summers we've had for a long time. So I'm not saying we don't get hot summers. Tamworth in particular, we do get hot summers, but we don't get as hot as some of the other places out west of us. And of course, some of those other places out west don't have the resources that we have here in terms of the clubs and the pubs and the fast food restaurants and the libraries and art galleries that we've got. So they don't have what we've already got. We continually talk about cost shifting, and this is really just a cost shifting exercise. Now, with this cost shifting exercise, we're the ones implementing it. We continually complain to the government about what they do in pushing cost onto local government. Here we are saying to government, here we want to do this, this work to try and work out what we can do, and we're going to ask you to help us spend our money, that's ratepayers' money, on something that the government are responsible for. And the government agencies are responsible for this. We have no expertise in the organisation to do anything other than do what we do. We don't have the expertise to look after the vulnerable at all. We do not have that expertise. We just don't have it. And we shouldn't be employing people that do have. If we are to offer any, I guess, places for people to go, it's going to have to be buildings like libraries or art galleries, and we're going to have extended hours. And I think, when I think about it, and when you do your homework, and I'd say there'd be some councillors sitting around this table would know that more people die of the cold than the heat. A lot more. So if we're going to do something about heat, it'd come well and truly second in my mind after looking after people in the cold weather. And that is that they're the vulnerable. They are the vulnerable people in cold weather. The cold weather's of a night. Normally late of a night, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about looking after people during the daylight hours when there's plenty of places where they can go and get relief. I think we've probably lost the plot on this one a bit, but councillors, that's my two bobs worth. I think we're talking about cost shifting, and we're pushing for it. Thank you. Councillors, do you want to close the debate?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. I'll just make a quick comment that I believe you said there that we can only do what we have the expertise to do. And I would just point out that, as Councillor Rimpey said, the suggestions I've put up here isn't reinventing the wheel. I am asking for consideration of, in a report on what we could potentially do, and the suggestions that I have put in there are all things that, to some extent, we are already doing. And what I'm sort of saying I think we should consider is a targeted scaling up when appropriate.
Councillors, the debate's closed, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against, 3. 5, 3. The motion is carried. Councillors, will now go to item 8. 8.1. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Sharpen, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Sharpen, do you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation in that? Any questions? I'll put the recommendation. All those in
Mr. Mayor,
favour.
sorry, I do have a question.
Yep.
Question was just in regards to what's listed down as the work plan. Seems really exciting to be able to have that 4-year strategy in place. Just some clarity, and that is that it seems like the way I'm reading the report is that the scope of ARIC is pushing beyond what its scope was previously and moving into starting to look at the audit around governance and moving into all of those other kind of compliance spaces. Am I reading that correct? Is that going to be the role of ARIC? I'm just worried about the workload or the increased workload. I know ARIC is joined by the fabulous Councillor Sharpen, but also incredible independent volunteers or people that volunteer their time onto ARIC. Oh, they are paid. All right. I was just worried that we're overloading people with what seems to be a tremendous amount of compliance work. Can I get some clarity on that, please?
Might ask Karen to make a comment on that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The ARIC committee is made up of 3 independent members and a councillor representative. One of those independent members is the chair. And the OLG has specific guidelines about what they look after, and that's under 428A of the Local Government Act. And yes, it is quite extensive, and there is some concern in the industry about how the ARIC will oversee all those items in a 4-year period. So this work plan was developed with our previous chair, Ron Gillard, and now with our new chair, Robert Legator, to make sure that we do encapsulate all those items that we have to and incorporate that into the internal audit framework so that we can achieve, hopefully, all the requirements of the guidelines.
That answer your question? Any further comments? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Raising their hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, will now move to 8.2. National General Assembly. Part of this will be nominating councillor representatives to attend the conference. So normally the Mayor and the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor often attend, but we do have other call for other nominations. So I'm calling for nominations before we discuss the matter. Do we have any nominations? Councillor North.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put my hand up to go myself.
Put your hand up. Any other councillors wish to put their hand up? Councillor Brooke.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll put my hand up with the caveat that I know I went last year as well, so if anyone did decide they wanted to go, I'd be willing to step down to make space.
No. Brooke. Other councillors interested in attending?
If there is room, I think I'd find some benefit in going and speaking to the motions.
Sorry.
Through Mr. Mayor, councillors, we do make provision for all councillors to attend
you can
this
all-
conference. The only thing you have to be mindful of is that if more than 4 goes, we have 4 voting delegates, and the others are observers.
Yeah, so the general manager just took the words out of my mouth. Anybody that's on council is funded to go, if you wish. Councillor Impey, did I see you showing some interest? Councillor Brooke?
Tangential question. You noticed that, through you, Mr Mayor, I noticed the General Manager said that we could send 4 voting delegates. Is that a change? I thought there was one singular voting delegate to ALGA.
4.
You might be right, Councillor. I think it's 4
Councillor,
I think it's 4 at LG and SW and 1 at National.
Councillor Brooke, we do get 4 voting delegates at LG and SW, and we get 1 at the Commonwealth. And there's normally about 500 attendees at that particular event. So we've got Councillor Budd, so we've actually got 5 councillors that will attend. So council, any discussion? Would someone like to move that?
Please, Mr Mayor,
Would you like to move that recommendation with those 5 councillors' names?
I'll move that if you like, Mr Mayor.
Now you can speak. Do I have a seconder? Councillor North, now you can speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Part 2 mentions motions to be submitted. Are we aware, I couldn't see it in the papers, are we aware of the cut-off date for those motions to be submitted? I've missed it, obviously.
Yeah, the intention, through you, Mr Mayor, the intention, Councillor Budd, is that councillors let us know what items they wish to raise as motions for council to submit, and that will come to the next business paper so that it can be submitted by the cut-off date. So councillors really need to put some energy into what they would like, and very quickly, so that we can put that forward.
Councillors, in respect to that, I'd ask councillors to cast their mind about the issues that we face here and face generally across this part of the state. And I think housing and water security are 2 issues that come to my mind, but other councillors might have other thoughts, and you certainly welcome any consideration for any motions. Further comments, councillors? The recommendation's been moved and seconded. Do we have any comments, further comments? We have 5 councillors nominated. We got Councillor North, Councillor Brooke, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Budd and myself. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Those against, carried unanimously. Councillors, we'll now move on to 8.3, Australian Local Government Women's Conference. Could I have a mover and a seconder in relation to that recommendation? Councillor Brooke, Councillor North. Councillor Brooke, you wish to speak to that?
Reserve the right. Reserve the right, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation, and is there any councillors that would wish to attend?
No, Mr Mayor, just wanted to declare that I'm away for work that weekend, so wouldn't be able to anyway.
Any other councillors interested in attending? Councillor?
Yeah, to make sure we have some representation there, I'd be willing to put my hand up.
So you'll put your name down to attend, councillor? So, councillors, we have 1 nomination. So we have that recommendation moved and seconded, and we have 1 nomination for an attendee. Councillor Impey, you wanted to speak?
Like Councillor Sutherland, I'm also away for work that period.
So, councillors, if there's no further comment, I'll put the recommendation with Councillor Brooke being the councillor's nominated councillor to attend. All those in favour say aye. Those against, carried. Councillors, we move on to item 8.4, proposed licensed area within the Community Event Centre. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Oh, sorry. Move Councillor Sutherland, second Councillor Impey. You speak to that, Councillor Sutherland?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor, just to say that I'm in full support of the recommendation. Arts North West do a fantastic job right across a number of local government areas. I know it's been fingers crossed as Tamworthians to hopefully have the chance where Arts North West could be located in Tamworth. We are the heart of arts and culture for the North West in New England, and so having Arts Northwest here with their amazing staff located next to the event centre or the old community centre there on Darling Street, I think is a great initiative and something I'm fully in support of.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Anyone wish to make comment? Councillor Impey.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yep, I too am in support of this. In fact, I think it will further cement our role as the heart of culture, artistic culture particularly, for our region, and further enhance our opportunities we have of attracting additional visits of ministers and people in important roles in other tiers of government to our community and to our region, so we can further emphasise the importance that we have. So it's all intertwined, if you like, Mr Mayor, and I think it's a very good move.
Thank you. Further speakers? There are no further speakers. I'll put all those in favour of the motion. Carried unanimously. We can get Councillor Brook back in. Councillors, we'll go to 9.1. Before we speak to 9.1, we did have a question, and I'm going to ask the Executive Manager of Creative Communities and Experiences to respond to that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we had a question on notice from Councillor Sharpen, and he wrote, "Can I make a recommendation regarding the name of the new road? I don't understand why it has a double A in Yarraman, as this was never a written language. And every other reference I found to Yarraman, in brackets, town in Queensland, property names, and even a festival, only have one A. I would suggest that this is going to create problems for those who use this road into the future, particularly around auto spelling and searching on Google." And the response we provided was, "Thank you for your inquiry, Councillor Sharpen. The spelling of Yarraman was confirmed in consultation with both the Tamworth Local Aboriginal Land Council and the Tamworth Aboriginal Community Controlled Organisation as the accepted Gamilaroi spelling and appropriate term for horse. The spelling and pronunciation of Yarraman that has been commonly used in more recent years is a westernised version of the Gamilaroi word Yarraman and would not acknowledge the Gamilaroi people who are the traditional custodians of the land on which ALEC is situated."
Councillors, so we'll go to item 1. I'll call for a mover. Councillor Sutherland.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor, and I would like to move the recommendation with an amendment.
Yes, well, you've moved the recommendation, which...
Yep.
You,
If someone could second that.
You need to tell us what it is.
tell us
Oh,
what...
the amendment is to change Yarraman from having a double A in the middle to a single A.
Councillor Sutherland, you can just move the recommendation that you want to move, and that is that it's... You move the recommendation as printed, except Yarraman's only got one A, so you can move that as a recommendation.
Yes, please.
So it doesn't have to be amended, I just need a seconder. Councillor Sharpen. Do you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, please. Language is an important part of culture, and Gomeroi people have been speaking language across the northwest for a long time, and it's captured across a lot of landscape and a lot of country even today. Early, a lot of pastoral leases, when they were first being established here across the northwest, started to incorporate traditional languages. You can see a lot of the remnants of those properties still exist. Gunnaganoo Station is an example. Today, there has been a lot of work that community have gone through to somewhat standardise a traditional language that spans across a large part of northwest New South Wales. This has meant extensive work, both grammatically, linguistically. For a number of years, community have pulled together a set of community resources and a spelling system and structure that Gomeroi people now use today to share that language. The word Yarraman, which is fitting for an extension of Ringers Road to be called, is a word for horse. Now, that word for horse is shared by a lot of different language groups across a large part of New South Wales. Fun fact, Mr Mayor, there was a stock route that used to run across the northwest all the way down to the port where people would take cattle. And everywhere along that stock route from down to Sydney all the way up to parts of the Northern Territory, where that stock route existed, they all call the word for horse Yarraman. Yeah, fun fact. Outside of that stock route, language changes. just want to comment about the VAL. I've had some conversations with the community, and that change is happy to be accommodated for, not to disrupt the way the language structure is working now, but to keep some consistency with the way that Yarraman is spelt and spoken across some place names locally. I just want to point out Yarraman Bully, Atatunga. Again, it's some consistent with that local language. Acknowledge that it does fit into the way that those early pastoral holders heard language and recorded language, but the changing of that vowel from a short vowel, from a long vowel, the double A to a short vowel, doesn't change the meaning of the word. And so because of that, I think that's a compromise that community are happy to make. People aren't really caught up on the word for horse, as so it seems. But they do want to make sure that the way that language is structured and written today is respected. It's great to see the streets out at the Global Gateway Park all recorded in language that complies with that spelling structure. I think this is an exception to make sure there isn't confusion when it comes to the geographical name port.
The councils, anyone wish to speak against? Anyone wish to make comment? Councillor Rodda.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I do appreciate the amendment that Councillor Sutherland made to it, because I actually went looking, when Councillor Sharpen mentioned the double A, I had this notion that I thought, would people see that little, it's only going to be a tiny little street too, but if they saw that sign, would they go Yarraman? Would they exaggerate the two A's? Would that be possible? But when I went looking for place names, I saw the parish of Yarraman in the county of Barradine, spelt like that. I found the parish of Yarraman in the parish of White, spelt with one R and one A. There is a Yarraman Creek next door within Liverpool Plains Shire Council, LGA, spelt like that. There is a town, as Councillor Sharpen mentioned, near Toowoomba, Queensland, spelt like that. And I just thought, as Councillor Sutherland just said, that probably to avoid confusion, it would be good to stick with that. And I think we're still honouring the local language. Like we say Kalala, and that's not necessarily the way Kamilaroi people would have said it, but it still honours that part of the language, I think, and this keeps that intact.
Thanks, Councillor Rodda. Any further comments, councillors? No further comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Carried unanimously. Councillors, we now move to item 10, reports to be considered in closed council. Do we have any requests for any of those items, Mr General Manager, to be brought to open council?
No, Mr Mayor.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to bring any of the items forward from closed council into open council? Councillor Rodda.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe that item 11.5 should be heard in open council, and I'd like to advise the following justification for this. One, that I believe that the recommendation is very premature, and as a council we have not discussed the sale with the community, the Heritage Working Group. None of those people have been involved in any discussions about the future use, potentially for community purposes. We have no assurances that the building would be retained if it was sold, or dramatically altered if it was sold. The only protection is that it is a heritage item in our LEP. It owes ratepayer significant money for the repairs to termite damage and significant legal and settlement costs to the former lessee. It would be good to adopt a position that if council subsequently approves the building to be marketed for sale, that any final purchase prices offered or negotiations should be subject to a final council report rather than, as we currently do, delegated to the Mayor and General Manager. This, I believe, will enhance transparency and accountability, and I believe is in accordance with the Independent Commission Against Corruption guidelines pertaining to disposal of goods and property. It would be good to discuss the disposal of the kitchen equipment. And since, as councillors haven't had a chance to discuss this item, I believe it should be potentially deferred or withdrawn But I believe that if we redact the valuation information contained in the body of the report, it would not contravene Section 10A2C of the Local Government Act to have this item held in open council if we, as I said, simply redact the valuation information.
Councillor Rod, I'll accept some advice on that, but I think because of the commercial in confidence with a fair bit of the report, we might be struggling, but please help me out here.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why we discuss it in closed council is to talk about the settlement price. So that has to be in closed council. Every other bit of information that the councillors have is available to the public. There is only a small portion of the report that is enclosed, and that's what we need to discuss. So that needs to be enclosed.
Councillor Rod, I see that you still have a challenge with that, but are there any other councillors challenged with that? That being the case, Councillor Rodder, we'll leave it where it is, and I'll call for a motion to move into closed council. Councillor Bard, second to Councillor Sharpen. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Councillors, the first item I do have a conflict with, and I'll be
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this is a report of the closed session of Ordinary Council held on the 10th of February 2026. In closed council this evening, you considered 5 items of business, and for all 5 items, you adopted the recommendations as per the business paper.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. I'll now...
Point of order, Mr Mayor. I believe we had one motion that we altered from the recommendation.
Oh. Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Yes, there wasn't a slight amendment to item 11.1 where the delegation to finalise that matter is with the Deputy Mayor and the General Manager rather than the Mayor and General Manager. Thank you. I totally forgot.
So, councillors, I have a motion to accept. Councillor North, second to Councillor Sharp, and all those in favour, say aye. Councillors, the meeting is closed.